Hello and welcome to the Album Man, and today I'm going to be kicking 2013 off with a bang, well in my opinion, and this is my, I take a look back and this is my top 25 albums of 2012. So, I meant to do this a bit earlier, but I just wanted to make sure this is a good list. Obviously there's, some albums I would have liked to have had the chance to listen to, but didn't. But as the albums I listened to, these are the 25 this year that really stood out. So at number 25 is an album that I really can't find to hand for some reason, and that is Last of a Dying Breed by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Now, although my review of this didn't give it as much praise as something like 2009's God and Guns, in my opinion a modern masterpiece, I still really enjoyed this album. I think the old person got the wrong end of the stick when I criticised songs like Homegrown and Honey Hole and Good Teacher. Yes, they're not their best songs, but still overall it's still a really solid album. And, an album I enjoy putting on from, time to time. It's a good album. At number 24, we have Squawk It's Life in a Day. Now, this is a collaboration between Chris Squire of Yes, the only member to have stayed in Yes, I think, throughout their entire history, and Steve Hackett of Genesis. So, yes, it's, it sounds on paper an interesting collaboration, and apparently I think it was Hackett's wife or something that came up with the name. Crap name. Really is a pretty crap name. And this is just a really great prog album. The problem I do have with it, but the thing is, it's a problem, but yet it's not. Let me explain. The problem with it is that it's really, you can take out the squaw from Squawk It. It really is Hackett featuring Chris Squire on bass. It sounds very much like a Steve Hackett solo album, more than, you can't really hear Chris Squire's influence. Like, there isn't much of a Yes or Squire influence in it. Even stuff like, I think his solo album, this first on Fish Out of Water, was it? It doesn't have any influence from Squire, really. I mean, yes, there's bits. There's certain songs, I think Alien certainly seems to have a bit of a Yes influence to it. But in general, it's a Hackett solo album. The thing is, it's just bloody good. I mean, songs like Aliens, again, so catchy. And just great prog, to be honest, even if Squire isn't all that in it, really. Okay, 23, an album I only listened to not too long ago and surprised me. I'd heard classic rock go on about it a lot, and this is Howlin' Rain, The Russian Wild. So I checked this out because classic rock are always going on about Howlin' Rain, so I gave them a listen on Spotify, and they are so good. Sort of a bit like the bands The Answer, who are a great band, that type of bluesy rock. Really, if you like bluesy rock, so check them out. Just, the guy's got such a great voice. It's really great. It reminds me, I'm probably going to be a bit off here, but it reminds me a little bit of a cross between Glenn Hughes and Steve Tyler. Yeah, I'm sure many people will disagree with me with saying that, but I don't know, they're just the two names that sprung to mind when listening to it. And the guy from The Answer sounds a bit like as well, but it's that type of bluesy rock. The guy's got a great voice, great guitar work in it, just really solid blues rock album. At number 22, we have Handwritten by the Gaslight Anthem, a band I only discovered this year, and mainly decided to listen to them because, Springsteen goes on about them enough. And yeah, so I listened to them, just so great, sort of Springsteen-esque type stuff, but definitely with a lot of modern rock elements into it. Songs like 45 especially, God, that's a good song, really good song. Just a strong album. It does peter off a tad bit towards the end, but it still keeps its consistency enough to be at number 22. Really solid album. Now at number 21, an album I do have at hand, is this, Van Halen, A Different Kind of Truth, which a bit early on in the year, or in 2012 even, I sort of said this was a contender to be Album of the Year. Clearly it wasn't Album of the Year, it's at number 21. And this album, it hasn't, well, I still love it a lot, clearly, it's at number 21. But it's not quite held itself as much as other albums. I still really enjoy listening to it, stuff like Tattoo, Blood and Fire, Stay Frosty, really great songs. But I don't know, I think the first couple of times I listened to it, I was just in awe of the fact that, I was alive to see a David Lee Roth Van Halen album come out. You know, I adore 1984. And I suppose after that sort of novelty has worn off and you see it for what it is, it's still a really good album. You know, don't quote me on that. It's just not quite as good as I'd first thought, but still enjoy it thoroughly. Great album, recommend it. Number 20, an album, when I first listened to it, I was quite disappointed, but has since grown on me massively. And this is The Killer's Battleborn. Now, I haven't talked about this album, I haven't reviewed it, going to. And when I first heard this, I heard it in the car, and I was really quite unimpressed. I thought Flesh and Bone, Runaways, already talked about Runaways, love that song. Flesh and Bone, Runaways were good songs, and the rest was just meh. It was alright, nothing special. Since I decided to listen to it on my hi-fi, give it another go, and wow. I just thought such a good album. No, it's not as good as Day and Age, and no, it's not as good as Hot Fuss, but those albums are just phenomenal. This is still a fantastic album, definitely recommend it if you're a fan of The Killers. Incorporates more Bruce Springsteen elements into it, which I like a lot, and yeah, I think it's a really good album. Okay, at number 19, we have an album which so many people have given hatred to. I think Cover Killer Nation, I'm sure he had it in his, what was it, top 5 or 10 West albums of 2012, West rock albums this is. And this is number 19 on my list. I love this. Adrenaline Mob, Omerta by Adrenaline Mob, which of course is one of Mike Portnoy's many projects, and I think this is great. I just think, I've heard people say it's a bit generic, it's stale. Yeah, it's not exactly revolutionary, I'll admit that, but for what it is, it's just a straight up hard rock album, and it's a bloody good one. Things like Undaunted, Indifferent, the cover of Duran, I think it's Duran Duran's Come Undone with Lizzie Hale on vocals. Oh my god, such a good song. I love that so much. Yeah, great song. And yeah, if you're a hard rock fan, I have to say I do recommend this, especially if you're a Symphony X fan, you know, like Russell Allen's vocals. Yeah, yes, I can understand when people say, one, it's a bit sort of Disturbed-ish, because the bassist is, but he actually didn't record on this album. But he does have a little bit of that. I can't say I'm a Disturbed fan, but no, I just think it's really catchy, big, you know, hard rock songs. Great. And talking about Lizzie Hale, that was convenient, didn't actually plan that. We get to number 18 with her band Halestorm. And this is the album, The Strange Case Of. And I know I hadn't heard of Halestorm at the beginning of the year. In fact, I first heard of Lizzie Hale through Omerta. And I was quite blown away by her voice on Come Undone. So when I heard that she, you know, about her band releasing a new album, I thought, yeah, I'll check it out. And I first listened to the song Love Bites, So Do I, the main single from this album. And yeah, at first, I don't know, I wasn't that impressed, but I thought, it's alright. But then hearing it subsequent times, I absolutely love the song. It's infectiously catchy. And the entire album is. I just think it's a really strong album. Got some fantastic standout track. It's not perfect, definitely not perfect. They have room to improve. But I think they're capable of doing great things in the sort of, you know, hard rock genre. Then at number 17 we have Amaryllis by Shinedown, and this is actually signed by the band, not this cover in the sleeve, which I'll show in my CDs I bought recently for December. And yes, I love this album. It's, you know, it's great. Stuff like Bully, the main single, I love that from the get-go. That's the first track I reviewed, and my first track review I think ever actually. And fantastic song. And yes, I can't say I'm the biggest fan on Nowhere Kids or Miracle, but the rest of the songs more than compensate for it. And even though it's not their best release, I would say in Sound of Madness it's like my 9th favourite album ever or something, so it's not as good as that, but it's still a great release, enjoyed it a lot, can't wait for the next one. Yeah. Okay, at number 16, we have an album that I don't own, but have listened to, a band I only got into this year through a band higher up on the list, and this is Beardfish. They are sort of part of this sort of 70s prog scene that's, you know, well, not actually as in they were in the 70s, as in, you know, revitalisation of 70s prog type stuff. Remind me a lot of Genesis and Yes and King Crimson, all great. Blend those together, you have Beardfish. Except, well, that's what you usually have, and that's what you had with 2011 Mammoth, which I still think to be their magnus opus so far. But in this album, The Void, which is number 16 on my list, they certainly are quite a bit heavier. And although I prefer the quiet, not as much quieter, but more 70s prog influenced stuff, I do like this more getting close to prog metal type thing, bordering on prog metal. And yes, I think it's very good, obviously, you know, I like it a lot. But I hope they don't quite always do this sound. It was nice change of pace for one album, but it made me like to see the next time go back to more of a 70s prog style. I'm not criticising it. Really solid album. Contains Notes, I would say is the best song, 15-minute epic. Still not quite as good as And If the Stones Said, or If the Stones Said I Could Speak, or something like that, which is my favourite of their songs. But yeah, great album. Number 15, song at the beginning of the year I thought was going to be my number 1 album of the year, but it's only at number 15. It's not that it's bad, it's just, I don't know, I had too high hopes for it. And this is Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. Yes, let's see his backing band's forename. And this is Apocalyptic Love. Now, when I first heard about this announced in late 2011, I thought, yeah, this is going to be my album 2012. No doubt about that. And it clearly isn't. It's a bloody good album, you know, stuff like Anastasia is such a good song, that's like a 7-minute epic. The single, Your Lie, I don't know, I've never quite taken to that. But it's a really solid album, end to end. It's just, I don't know, it just didn't quite blow me away, how, you know, in the way I thought it would. But it's still really enjoyable, really solid album. At number 14, we have a classic guy coming back and in form, to be honest. And something I didn't expect he could make something this good, but he has. And someone I only got into this year, actually. This is Bob Dylan's Tempest. And wow, this surprised me. I mean, you know, I love Bob Dylan. Only early 2012. Keep thinking it's 2012. I discovered Bob Dylan. Yes, Highway 61 revisited, my favourite of his, and Blood on the Tracks, my second favourite. Love those two albums to death. I mean, Desolation Row from Highway 61 revisited, the closing tracks there, is my favourite song of all time. Yeah, you know, can't give any higher praise than that, really. And this album is just fantastic. One of the things that excited me the most when I first read about this was the title track, Tempest. And that was simply because of one factor, the length. It was his longest song since Desolation Row, so I was thinking, hell yeah, long Bob Dylan song, this is going to be good. And yeah, it's bloody amazing. A song about the Titanic, and it's sinking. Oh, such a good song. But yeah, it's not even the best on the album. The best on the album is Tin Angel. Tin Angel is a proper story. It's an all-out story, and he's doing what he does best, a story. And that section where it has Early Roman Kings, Tin Angel, Tempest, and Roland John towards the end is so strong. Not to say the rest of it isn't. Stuff like Narrowway, Pay and Blood, fantastic tracks. And Duquesne Whistle, the single. And loads of people would say that's the best track on the album. It's not. It's a good, really good song, but it's not the best track on the album. Definitely not. There's definitely better tracks. I definitely recommend checking out Tin Angel if you're a fan of storytelling songs, or if you're a fan of more bluesy type Bob Dylan, definitely something like Narrowway and Pay and Blood. Fantastic album. At number 13, another album I don't own, really need to get, is Heads Down by Rival Sons. Now, I discovered Rival Sons back I discovered them through Classic Rock. They had some songs from their EP, their first EP, well, after their album they released themselves, but the first sort of record contract EP. And I bought Pressure and Time, loved that album, but I thought it had one flaw, and that flaw was that it didn't have any longer songs. And it may sound a bit weird, but I thought that the way, they're sort of a, if you don't know them, they're sort of a Zeppelin-esque, very 70s influenced band, massive vinyl freaks and stuff. You know, love that type of 70s music and heavily inspired, but yet they've given it a sort of a fresh air to it, so it doesn't feel like they're rehashing Zeppelin, it feels like they're adding. And it's really fantastic what they're doing, but I just felt like a benefit from doing something a bit longer. And then came along the songs, oh god, what's their names? Yeah, there's 2 songs on the album which are just fantastic. That's it, Manifest Destiny Part 1 and 2. And those songs, wow, Part 1 especially is an 8-minute song with about a 4.5-minute guitar solo. They basically took effectively all, you know, my advice from Pressure and Time of have some longer songs, but yet still keep that, you know, those short, fun songs, and they did that. It's got those short, fun songs like Keep On Swinging, great song, a bit like Pressure and Time, but then it's just got that, those long songs, and it's just, yes, it's, you know, it's a fantastic album, number 13 on my list, Heads Down by Rival Sons. Number 12 has to be another artist I only discovered this year, actually. Marilyn Manson. I've been seriously getting into Marilyn Manson ever since I decided to take the plunge and buy Hollywood, which I just love to death. Bought many of his other albums. In fact, I think I'm getting close to owning his entire discography. Bought a lot of his albums this month. But yes, Born Villain. Thoroughly enjoyed this album. I remember first hearing about it at the beginning of the year and not being interested at all, actually. And who knows why. Stuff like No Reflection, that's actually been nominated for a Grammy, Not Like Anyone Cares. Slow Motion, love that song. There's just, you know, it's such a strong album. Is it as good as something like Hollywood? No, but it's bloody heavier. God, some of the songs on here really surprised me with how heavy he went. God, very heavy album, really dark, really Marilyn Manson-ish. What's there not to like? Great. At number 11, we have the blues maestro, and the guy who I will happily call the greatest guitarist of all time, controversially. And this is Joe Bonamassa. And yes, I know I'm holding this backwards, but just wait a sec. Yes, this is Driving Towards the Daylight, and this is, you know, he releases an album every year, and this is his latest effort. And yeah, also I am lucky enough to have it signed by Joe, which is exceptionally cool, as he is my favourite guitarist of all time. I love the guy, he's a guitar god, and yeah, it's such a strong album. Why is it not higher? I mean, you know, it's Joe Bonamassa. Well, it's not quite as good as Dust Bowl, his previous effort, and again, a bit too much reliance on covers, but I'm hardly criticising this album, am I? I mean, it's number 11 on my top 25 albums 2012. Especially, I'll tell you, the song to listen to off this album especially is number 11, Too Much Ain't Enough Love with Jimmy Barnes. Now, this is, I think a Jimmy Barnes solo song, could have been with Cold Chisel, I'm not sure, honestly don't know much about Jimmy Barnes. But I listened to this, and it quite honestly blew me away. One of my favourite songs of 2012, and fantastic revitalisation of Jimmy Barnes' classic song. This version is a lot better in every way, to be honest. Joe's guitar just suits it perfectly. Jimmy Barnes' vocals have aged, matured, just so good. And the rest of this album, the opening track, Dislocated Boy, the title track, Driving Towards the Daylight, A Place in My Heart, what's the Bernie Marsden cover, which I can't remember the name of now. Just such a solid blues album. If you're a fan of Joe, check it out. If you're a fan of blues, check it out, to be honest. If you don't know who Joe Bonamassa is, just go listen to him. And if you really don't know who he is, listen to Slow Gin, and that will convert you a cover of the Tim Curry song. Greatest cover of all time, in my opinion. Okay, well, on to the top 10, and I know this is a long video, and I hope it's been worth the wait, my top 10. Considering I only did a top 5 last year, you know, big improvement. So, at number 10, we have an album that, quite honestly, I didn't expect would get in the top 10, but it has. Feeder's Generation Freak Show. I love Feeder, always have done since I was very little. And this is just such a return to form. I didn't like Renegades, I've made that clear, and the rest of the Feeder community has hated me for it ever since. But I didn't like Renegades that much. I thought it was decent, not bad. Wasn't that good though. I like Comfort and Sound, Silent Cry, but this, I think this may well top them all, to be honest. I'm not quite sure if it's as good as Comfort and Sound, but fantastic album, so strong, end to end. Children of the Sun, about a 6.5-minute song at the end, best song on the album. The single Borders, I talked about that, and that's what gave me hope for this album. You see, Renegades, it was a departure from the sound, a bit more of more, not hard rock, it's Feeder, but more of a hard rock influenced sound, and I just didn't think it worked that well, to be honest. And they were actually planning to release this album only about 6 months after Renegades. I'm pleased they held it back. They decided to just go back into the studio, you know, make sure it was up to scratch. 12 fantastic songs. Yeah, check it out. Definitely check it out. Okay. And at number 9, we have an album I've been praising a lot recently, and actually got a free copy of from New Ocean Media, so thank you very much for that. And this is Antlers, Back from the Dead. Now, when I heard about this album being announced, it was like Steven Adler releasing a solo album, as in the drummer of Guns N' Roses. Not that he's a bad drummer, I think he's a great drummer. Appetite is my joint favourite album of all time. But I was thinking, he's doing a solo album? Yeah, check it out, I suppose. And then when I heard that single of The One That You Hated, it was just like, oh my god, it really did blow my mind. It was such a good song. The vocalist, Jacob Bunton, so good. The guitarist, Lonnie Paul, really knows how to play. And this also features some guest appearances from John Five of good old Marilyn Manson. And Slash, of course, which is always nice to hear Slash and Adler, and that's on the song Just Don't Ask. And yeah, really fantastic album, and there'll be reviews of all the albums here that I've reviewed in the description below, so do check them out. And yeah, I mean, I've praised this album a lot. At number 8, we have an album I haven't talked about at all this year, and this is Map of the Past by It Bites. And these were sort of, well, at first, you know, in the, I think, 80s, they were, you know, sort of a rock band. They had one single, I'm Calling All the Heroes, and I can't say I like that era of stuff that much. But now they've teamed up with one of the guys from Arena, and oh my god, Tall Ships was such a good album. And this, I'm not sure if it's better, but it's still a fantastic album. Prog influenced, really catchy choruses. If you're a fan of, you know, prog and big catchy choruses, if you're a fan of Arena, definitely check this out. It's very Arena-like. But stuff like Wallflower, Big Machine, Meadow in the Stream is probably the best song. Check out Meadow in the Stream if you're not sure about the band. Yeah, great concept album as well. Just about, I think it was the lead singer, can never remember his name. He found his grandfather's photo, which is actually that photo there, and decides to write about what he thought his life might be like. Great concept album, really good. Okay, at number 7, we have another return to form from some, you know, an older band, and this is Le Futura by ZZ Top. Really need to review this, but yeah, it's just 10 tracks, and the first stuff they've done in about a million years with Rick Rubin producing, and yeah, it's just 10 tracks, you know, killer, no filler. From Got to Get Paid to Have a Little Mercy, there's not a single track that's bad. It's all fantastic. On a normal year, this could have easily been an album of the year. I personally think 2012 was an exceptional year for music, and it only got to number 7. But 2011, yeah, it would have been album of the year. Most years, it would have done, to be honest. Fantastic album. Really goes back to their bluesy roots. Very bluesy album. Billy's voice is so deep, and oh, great album. And at number 6, I have probably my biggest surprise of the year. Well, not, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose it probably is. Which is the very, very little known band, who I do like to give shout outs to as much as I can. The Reticent with Le Temps d'Étrer 2. And this is number 6. I mean, I said this was a contender for album of the year. And this album, it's just as good as when I first put it on. And yes, this is signed by the guy, it's a one-man band, Chris Hathcock. Yeah, I mean, this is like, it's sort of opathy, not, you know, doom metal opathy, and Porcupine Tree-esque, except I honestly, I'm sure people call me blasphemous for this, to, you know, not worshipping the gods of Stephen Wilson and Ackerfeld, but, this is better. I think this is better than Opeth's Heritage. Honestly, I didn't think it was that good. And I'd say it's better than, you know, certainly a certain release that Stephen Wilson and Michael Ackerfeld released earlier this year, but we'll be talking about that in a different list. Yeah, I mean, this song, it's also dedicated to my favourite author of all time, Christopher Eric Hitchens, who sadly died on December the 15th, 2011. And yeah, so it's an album written about my favourite author, done in an atmospheric, progressive, very dark style. What's there not to like? Check out the song, if you don't know them, with Folded Arms. That's only a bonus track actually, but it's really good, really good. Okay, getting into the top 5 now. I know it's been 25-minute video so far, but stay with me. And this is Asia's XXX. And this was to mark the 30th anniversary, and when I heard about this album, it's like, yeah, I'm sure this will be a decent album. I didn't realise how good this will be. This is just 9 tracks, that's all. And this is their second best album. It beats Alpha, beats any other album they've done, except, of course, for Asia's Asia. That's an all-time classic. But, yeah, I mean, the best track on this, Face on the Bridge, yeah, I'm going to be talking about this track more. Just every song, I can't fault it. There was really not a fault to this album, to be honest. It's wonderful. Wonderful. Another old band who had a slight return to form, because the last album wasn't too good. It was still not bad. But anyway, Magnum on the 13th Day. And yeah, I love Magnum now. One of my favourite bands of all time. Their 2008-2009 album, Into the Valley of the Moon King, is one of my favourite albums of all time, my top 10. And I found 2011, I think it was 2011, The Visitation to not be that good. I thought it was alright, maybe like a 7 or something, but this was amazing. Gave it a 9.5, and it deserved it. From the song that they didn't play live of So Let It Rain, yes, I thought I'm a bit begrudging about that. To Blood Red Laughter and All the Dreamers and Dance of the Black Tattoo. So good, so solid. Just again, shortish album, 11 songs and just no filler. Just everything is just great. It's what I wanted from Magnum, what I expected from Magnum, and it shows that even though they're about in their mid-60s, they can still rock. They really can. Well done. The top 3. And one of these is going to be a big surprise. 2 of them aren't. Number 3, Flying Colours, Flying Colours. Did anyone seriously think I wasn't going to put this in my list? I've been going on about Flying Colours all year. I think this album's genius. I've said so much about it, so I won't spend too long. I think it's genius. I think that everything about it is wonderful. 11 tracks. It goes from catchy as hell songs like Kayla, The Storm, Everything Changes, to a long epic, prog epic like Infinite Fire, which is about 12 minutes. Just listen to it. Just listen to it. It's basically prog pop, and don't let the pop bit put you off. It's not, Carly Rae Jepsen. This does have Mike Portnoy and Neil Morse, for God's sake. And Steve Morse. And Dave LaRue. I think Dave LaRue? Yeah, I think so. At number 2, the album all of you thought was going to be number 1. Yeah, this is only at number 2. Now, is this because this album's got worse throughout the year? No, I don't regret giving this a 10 out of 10. It is, I can't fault it. Conceptually, it's a masterpiece. Musically, it's a masterpiece. And lyrically, it's a masterpiece. It's, in my opinion, their best album, possibly. Yeah, I would say their best album that I've heard so far. I haven't heard all of Rush's albums yet, but I love this to death. But it's not number 1. In fact, the album at number 1 is an album I have never talked about on this channel. It's a band I've briefly mentioned before on things like Q&As. I remember there was someone who asked me a question of, what do you think of the local scene in Liverpool, where you live? And I live in Liverpool, and I said, I don't know the local scene at all. But my favourite band from Liverpool at the moment has to probably be Anathema. And here we are at number 1. Anathema's Weather Systems. This may only have a Metacritic of 7.3, but they're just because they're idiots and don't see it. There's a lot of people who I don't know, there's a lot of people who criticise this album, say it's a bit formulaic, a bit generic. Personally, I don't think so. I think from start to finish with the amazing Untouchable Part 1, probably the greatest thing Anathema's ever done. This is atmospheric, prog at its finest. I think this is a classic prog album that should be rated up there with the greats like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. You know, I think it's that good. It honestly, it blew my mind when I first heard it. I haven't been this excited listening to an album since I first heard David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. It's just stunning. Untouchable Part 1, obviously I recommend The Storm Before the Calm, The Beginning and the End, but obviously I think this album is without flaw. It has a sort of a concept covering life and death. It's just beautiful, beautiful, and utilised the female vocalist Lee Douglas to great effect as well. Just check this out. It's the best album to come out from Liverpool since, you know, the Beatles died, to be honest. Well, not literally. Well, I mean, 2 of them died, but I mean, like, the band. Anyway, yeah, check this out, definitely. Just, you know, YouTube it at least. I love this album to death, and there'll be a full review of it soon. Okay, so thank you very much if you stayed for the full 30 odd minutes of this video. And this has been my top 25 albums of 2012. Thanks for watching. This has been the Album Man. Comment, rate, subscribe, and as usual, long live rock and roll.